and it's all yours.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our three-part series, Digital Equity Capacity Grant Building webinar series. This is the third of three webinars, and we're going to be focusing on how to design a strong digital inclusion program. Really happy to see you all here, hopefully some returning faces from our first two webinars. And so with that, let's dive in. Here's a preview of the team who is going to be leading today's call. I'm Devin, the Director of the Office of Broadband, and I'm joined by Alicia Ross, a Community Engagement Manager with the Illinois Office of Broadband, and Aneta Lee, Assistant Director for Digital Equity, Inclusion, and Navigation with our partner organization at the University of Illinois, the Illinois Broadband Lab. So before we dive in, we'd love to do just kind of a quick icebreaker and use this as an opportunity to learn a little bit more about you and your organizations. So if you've been to one of these webinars surrounding the digital equity grants and the digital equity capacity grant program, you'll have heard this term covered populations. And we really want to drill it home because these are the populations that we'll all have to prioritize in the coming 5 years. So quick recap, covered populations are listed on these slides. These are folks that NTIA has identified as most impacted by digital disparities historically, underinvested communities. And so we will need to prioritize serving these folks as a part of any sort of NTIA Digital Equity Act funded grant programs over the coming couple of years. So with that, we would love to hear from you. How does your organization serve covered populations? So feel free to throw in the chat your name, your organization, and just 1 or 2 sentences on how you might serve one or more of these covered populations. If you serve all of them, that's awesome, but feel free to just pick 1 or 2 to highlight. And I'll read a couple off here. So it looks like we have UIUC's Education Justice Project serving incarcerated individuals, a really important covered population. We have CRIS, Healthy Aging in Danville and Champaign, serving low-income folks, rural households, older adults. We got aging populations. Heartland Library System. Yeah, there's organizations like libraries that kind of touch everybody. Awesome. Yeah, if you're serving countywide, you'll definitely be working with more than one covered population, seeing people with disabilities, English language learners. What a fantastic group. And I think something to just drive home here right off the bat is that there are some organizations out there that are specifically offering digital inclusion and digital equity services. But there are a lot of organizations who just have these really close, trusted relationships with communities who belong to covered populations and have this really great opportunity to embed digital inclusion services within their existing programming. So would love to kind of get folks in that frame of mind as we go into today's conversation. All right, well, feel free to keep throwing things in there and we will get moving. So as for an agenda for today, we just went through introductions. I'll walk through a few slides sharing context on the Digital Equity Act, and then we'll hand it off to our guest speakers to do 2 kind of program deep dives. First, we'll have foundational information about a digital navigator program, kind of what are the considerations, and then we'll have a one-on-one interview with Aneta Lee, who operates the Broadband Lab's digital navigator program. And then we'll look at a broader digital inclusion program and have an interview with Dwayne Douglas, who operates a community-based program in Chicago. Then we'll go over next steps and open it up for Q&A. Hopefully we'll have 10 or 15 minutes to cover any questions. So by the end of today's call, we'll hope that you leave with knowledge about the state digital equity plan and the timeline for our grant release. We'll help you understand best practices when crafting a digital inclusion program, including digital navigator programs and broader digital inclusion programs. And you'll just get clarity and get some of your questions answered. And as a reminder, I know we have lots of familiar faces, but if you are new to this group, a quick overview of who we are. Part of our group is housed in the Illinois Office of Broadband, a state agency within the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Our goal is to connect everyone to broadband and help them build sufficient digital skills. So we manage lots of grant programs, including the forthcoming broadband deployment program called BEAD and the forthcoming Digital Equity Act funds. We also engage regional champions and community organizations to meet these goals. And then on the right side of the slide, we have our essential partnership with the Illinois Broadband Lab at the University of Illinois, who supplements this work through research and data, programming, expertise, and lots of other components. So we like to kind of frame on what is digital equity before we dive in. The word digital equity is built into this statute, the Digital Equity Act. So important that we all kind of understand what we're talking about here. So the way we talk about digital equity is both as an outcome and a process. As an outcome, it's the state that we're trying to reach, where all Illinois residents have access to quality and affordable broadband devices and skills they need to participate in Illinois' modern economy and thrive. And the equity piece here is really focusing on those with the greatest barriers, historic disinvestment, to make sure and give them the tools so they're empowered towards civic and cultural participation, employment, lifelong learning, and access to essential services. Digital equity is also a process. It's how we do business every day. We're co-designing a grant program, kind of bringing folks most impacted to the table early on. We're getting that impact, investing in community champions, making sure that those are at the table who have the greatest need and who are most impacted by digital inequities at the end of the day. And we have a great quote here at the bottom from Congressman John Lewis: "The internet is the civil rights issue of the 21st century." So thanks to Alicia, one of our team members, for highlighting that quote. So in case you missed it, I mentioned that this is a third webinar of a three-part series. All of our webinars are available at our website, which is dceo.illinois.gov/connect-Illinois. On the left-hand side, there's a button called Digital Equity Act. So that is where you can go for all things digital equity moving forward related to grant programs, recordings, slides, and all of the above. So hopefully by the end of the week, we'll have all three webinars up there, but that should be your kind of one-stop shop if you're looking for resources or any other information. All right, so diving into some context slides. The Digital Equity Act is kind of the foundation for all of this work that we're going to be launching. It was a part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and offers funding in three main buckets. What we're going to be focusing on today is related to the capacity grant. So this is funding to every state and territory to implement their digital equity plans over the next 5 years. So we're expecting potentially as much as $39 million. And that is formula funding based on the amount of covered populations in every state. And I will just say we have reviewed these slides in all of the webinars in case we have new folks here. So if this is repetitive, you'll just be an expert by the end of this call. Our state digital equity plan was approved in April, which unlocks this opportunity for us to go after these dollars from NTIA. And one of the things that we committed to in our plan was launching a statewide digital equity grant program. So that is one of the core implementation activities. And the reason we're here today is we want to make sure that folks are prepared and feel ready to go after these funds, both from a program design perspective, as well as just making sure you're actually eligible to participate in the state grant program. So here's a high-level timeline. We created our digital equity plan after a year of community conversations, surveys, listening sessions, an asset mapping exercise, data analysis. Our plan was approved. We applied for this funding. Now we're just waiting on NTIA. We're currently gathering community input on how we implement. Then we'll launch this notice of funding opportunity in the fall. have that open for 6 to 8 weeks, evaluate your applications, and aim to get funding out the door in early 2025. And you'll hear us talk about this concept called a NOFO. This stands for Notice of Funding Opportunity, and it just kind of outlines everything you need to know about how to apply for this grant, what you can apply for how much money, who can apply, timelines, all the essential information will be in that NOFO. And just to refresh, NTIA requires us to prioritize serving covered populations. So you can see on this slide, we've got low-income households, incarcerated folks, people with disabilities, aging folks, and so much more. And so we're flashing this slide up so you can get an idea of what the eligible types of programs that you can apply for down the line once the NOFO launches will be. A huge disclaimer, this is subject to change based on our design process and community inputs. We are early on in this process, but we're trying to kind of showcase this, get it out there now, so you do have that context as you're participating in these webinars. So we'll be accepting, as far as we know now, we'll be accepting applications for programs that give out devices that train covered populations in digital skills like Word and how to use a computer, digital navigation, so one-on-one support, connecting folks with resources and quality internet, programs that increase broadband affordability, funds that allow communities to plan for their broadband futures, and then funds to help coalitions kind of get started and get running. And so with that, we're going to keep it rolling here. If you have questions, we'll try and respond in the chat, or we'll cover them at the end of our session today. But I will hand it over to Alicia to take us through the next couple of slides.
Thank you so much, Devin. I appreciate it. As Devin mentioned, we will be talking about the digital navigation program. First, I want to give you an overview, and then I will be speaking with some of our key leaders, one for digital navigation programming and our digital inclusion programs, one of the digital inclusion programs we have. So the Digital Navigator program addresses the whole digital inclusion process. You all have, some of you have engaged with our leader, with IBL Aneta Lee and her digital navigator. Some of you may be hosting some of those digital navigators at your organizations. But it is an opportunity for community members to receive personalized digital literacy skill training. We were just at an event yesterday, and there were so many people that were interested in the digital skills, in building out their digital skills. And it starts from anywhere from the basics. And when we talk about basics, there are people who do not know how to sign on to a computer. So this is part of what the digital navigation program is. And then, of course, having access to the technology, knowing how to use that technology, therefore, the computers, the laptops, and the tablets, and perhaps even some of the smartphones that they may have. And then overall connecting community members to affordable internet and other resources that they may need. Thank you. So who are these digital navigators? At the heart and at the core, they are people who are trained, who have a desire to train others. They have a passion for the communities that they're currently serving, and perhaps even going into other communities that they have not yet to serve, but they are service-oriented. They're community members who are trusted by their communities, and then just overall trusted people. When, as again, some of you may have engaged with some of the community digital navigators, you can see right away there are people who are coming into your communities who are saying, how can I help serve you in this capacity as it relates to digital inclusion overall? And also they have, therefore, the experience. They're willing to be trained in the things that they have not been trained in yet. And as you see in this slide, one of the things that we do require for our program, and Aneta will talk more about this, is for all digital navigators to complete a training and for computer knowledge, but also for cultural awareness, cultural sensitivity, digital confidence. This is one of the things that we talk about. I know Cook County has actually been focused, and we kind of just said, yes, it's digital confidence that we have to focus on when we're coming and working with the communities as digital navigators and overall. Thank you. And more specifically, who are the digital navigators? Some of them are volunteers. They're volunteer community members. And when we talk about volunteers and digital navigators overall, these are people, they may come from, they may have just finished college, undergraduate. They may have not, maybe they're just finished community college, or maybe they're professionals, maybe they're retired professionals, or someone who just realizes this is a place where I can serve in a place where I want to be served. So they are cross-trained staff also. They're working with organizations. Again, some of you may be familiar and have hired some of the people that you've been working with who said that they have a desire to be a digital navigator. So they could be existing staff members or they can be completely new employees. And we'll talk more about that as it relates to the program that we have with the Illinois Broadband Lab. And so therefore, what I'd like to do is now introduce you to those who have not met Aneta Lee, our Assistant Director of the Illinois Broadband Digital Navigator Program, and to those who are familiar, to learn a little bit more about the process and what she has been doing over this past year. So Aneta Lee.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone. My apologies. In the spirit of digital inclusion and technology, it seems that my camera is not connecting to this Zoom call. So you'll have to use my lovely representation here. But thank you so much, Alicia and Devin and the IOB team for inviting me to share my experiences with the group here. And hopefully you can glean some ideas and possibilities as you craft your digital inclusion programming. So as Alicia mentioned, my name is Aneta Lee. I'm serving with the Illinois Broadband Lab, the university side of the Illinois Broadband team. And I actually hail from Metro Atlanta, Georgia. And yes, I actually moved outside of my region to the Midwest from the Southeast in order to do this program right here. So I hope that shows my commitment and passion to this cause of digital inclusion. And I have been working in digital inclusion and equity for about 10 years. And so when I was brought onto the team, the goals when I was brought on was to stand up this program. It was novel, it was new, it was something that no other states at the time were doing. And so through the vision of the Office of Broadband, they asked me to come and help stand up this first program. And the purpose of it, obviously, as Alicia mentioned, was to bring digital inclusion program to communities. So as she explained, the digital navigators are these trusted individuals that can go into the community, especially our historically marginalized communities, and actually not only be ambassadors to digital inclusion, educate what does it mean to be digitally inclusive, what digital equity is, but be that holistic person to come and provide digital skills, to find low cost or free devices, and to get them affordable internet.
Yes.
And so that target audience for this program was, as you can see, the low income, the underserved, the historically marginalized communities. We want to close the digital divide. That is the issue, closing the digital divide, basically trying to right that 21st century civil rights issue that the late Congressman talked about. And so when the navigators came on, they were marketed and to set up for the Affordable Connectivity Program. The state had received some funding from the FCC in order to do just that, get as many people logged on to the ACP program so they can get internet in their homes. But as you know, because of the success of the program, the funding run out of money, and which was unfortunate that Congress did not refund it. So back in early this year, we had to make a shift. We had to make a pivot.
Yes.
And so the navigators then started providing digital skill classes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anita, for sharing that. We want to also find out more information about the budget process. What has the budget process, or what does it look like on a higher level for the program that you have been standing up with IBL?
Absolutely. So with the FCC funding, the Illinois Broadband Lab went into an agreement with Lead for America, American Connection Corps. That is an AmeriCorps type program that does the hiring and managing of individuals that wanted to do a year of service. So as you can see on the slide, in order to get into that partnership with Lead for America, we provided $35,000 to Lead for America per member. And so that is one of many options, and I'll talk a little bit more about other options, but that's the option that we chose for this first year pilot.
Okay.
And so, yeah, you want me to talk about the next part?
Yes, I was going to ask, what are those main buckets of funding? So you've mentioned staff, but what about equipment as well as the marketing that is needed for the program?
Absolutely. If you're going to have a digital navigator go out into the community to help people sign up, you're probably going to need a computer. So as you think about having a digital navigator on board, you need to think about having a computer. And it's important for them to be able to communicate virtually and digitally as well as in person with the community members. Being able to take that computer, usually it needs to be a laptop, to be able to take that computer to community spaces so they can do signups. I'm going to add on something that I learned in our year for this first year was that, and when you think about a lot of places that are rural communities and our underserved neighborhoods, some of those places wanted to be able to provide digital skills training, but
Mhm.
they had space and they had Wi-Fi, but they didn't have the technology.
Right.
So I would recommend, and I'm probably going to talk a little bit more about this, that you think about possibly having like a portable or mobile type lab that your digital navigator can use to bring that lab to places and community spaces to provide that training. And then, of course, there's the marketing. You need swag items. You need to be able to have flyers and things of that nature. But I'll talk a little bit about that in the coming slides.
Thank you so much, Anita. And how, this is a place where we actually would like to know more about how the program was structured. For example, the digital navigators being placed at university or government entities that you've worked with. And then we'll talk more about the curriculum, digital literacy curriculum, and then, yes, the marketing and promoting of your program. But if you can just give us a high level on where the digital navigators were placed.
Right, exactly. So, what was decided once we did receive the FCC outreach grant and decided to get into this partnership with Lead for America, we, Illinois Broadband Lab, could not actually host all of them to work up under us at the university. We
Right.
thought it was important. First of all, we had to place them, and they wanted them around the region. We wanted to do this statewide. So we made a decision to place our digital navigators, for the most part, with our Broadband Ready team leads. And so if you're unfamiliar with Broadband Ready, it's the regional engagement that the university has with the other 12 universities around the state. And so for the most part, our navigators were placed with those Broadband Ready teams because one of the things that they were working on was a digital equity project, and we thought that would be a suitable place to have them work
Yeah.
their ACP and enrolling. Um, and we also had some government partners as well. Our esteemed director, actually, she still is the site supervisor for one of our digital navigators. She started working with Chanel at the city level, and she brought her along when she got into the state realm. And so we had a couple of our navigators in some governmental agencies.
Okay.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah,
Thank
want to
you.
move on to
Thank
the
you.
curriculum?
Yes, please, if you can tell us about the digital literacy curriculum, I understand that you've used North Star, but if you can just, touch a little bit on what that is and what does that mean for the digital navigators and their use.
Absolutely. So interestingly enough, so as before, as I said, it started out as our navigators were only supposed to be working on connecting people with affordable connectivity program.
Hmm.
But when we had to make that pivot, we were kind of interestingly blessed through Lead for America, who actually had a partnership with the North Star Digital Literacy Assessment Organization to
Hmm.
provide us with a license to the assessment tool and the curriculum. So as the navigators had to pivot their project into providing digital skills classes, they had access to this tool and curriculum. It is not a free access to that curriculum, and so it was actually purchased for us. And I'll talk a little bit about that when we think about cost.
Yes, definitely. And I know you mentioned the marketing and the flyers, but what else did you use? And then we'll move on to the next slide so you can elaborate more on this.
Yeah, I think it's important that everyone understands that we can't put everything on social media. We got to do a little analog. When you think about the fact that we are trying to provide services in historically marginalized or disconnected communities, we can't just throw a bunch of things on websites and Facebook and think that the people that we really want to take these classes are going to reach it. So it's important that you do have flyers, that you network, that we table. As you were mentioning, we were at the Women of Hope Summit in Chicago, and that was an amazing opportunity to not only connect with community members who needed digital skills, but with agencies who are also assisting community members. So
Okay.
that word of mouth is also a real thing.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And so, here we want you to share more about the measure and impact and the evaluation process. We know that you've been going through this process all year long, but even more specifically as you're gearing up for this the next year for your digital navigation program. So if you can give us a little more detail on what your process or progress has been and is at this time.
Absolutely. Um, you know, there was challenges, I'll say again, because of that pivot, because of the ACP round down. And so what I provided here in this very wordy slide that I'm not going to read off is some recommendations and actually different tools that I use in other programs that I've had the honor of managing and guiding. So when you think about how you measure success, you need to figure out what is success for you and your program within your organization. And of course, you have to consider what your program's funder and their required deliverables are. So that was different things for me depending on the organization and the funding that I was working for. So thinking about this upcoming Digital Equity Act funding that I'm sure all of you are going to be applying for, what does NTIA want? Well, there's slides and different things that talk about what it is that they need in order to measure success for your program, which obviously will also be administered through the state. But also think about, and so that, that goes into the numbers and things of that nature. And so, but think about for what does a digital inclusion program mean for the success of your organization? What kind of impacts do you want to see within your clients or customers or patients or patrons or whoever it is that you're serving? What is it
Mhm.
that you want to see? Is it that increase in digital skills level? Well, if it is, what does that mean? Does that mean that you do pre and post tests to measure confidence before and after the class? Do you have them take the North Star Digital Literacy Assessment? And if they pass the course, then hey, you know that the information was imparted. You can think about other things like if you are, say you're a housing agency, right? And you want to interact more with your residents digitally. Well, if you provide digital inclusion or digital skills classes, and then all of a sudden you see that your residents are emailing you more, they're requesting more, they're not running to the office for every little question that they have or giving you a call, they're sending you emails. So that's success maybe for a residential sort of community. So think about what success means for your organization, and measure that and craft things that measure that, including to whatever your funder is needing.
Okay, thank you. So definitely considering being more focused on what are your specific needs are. Thank you. And so what advice do you have for someone who wants to stand up a digital inclusion program for their community? What are some of the things that you've learned over the past year, combined with the things that you've learned over the past 10 years that you have been conducting various digital inclusion programming. The time that it takes researching assessments, as you mentioned, specifically for the digital navigation program, and of course, the flexibility, fluidity. So please share us your takeaways.
Absolutely. As I mentioned before, I think it's very important for your organization to decide what success looks like for the people that you serve within your organization. um, it doesn't really matter if you have trained 300 people if in the end, the lives of the people that you're trying to serve have not improved. So think about and be intentional about incorporating digital inclusion as part of the overall success of your organization and program. And so I say, take as much time as you can to research and brainstorm that plan. Obviously, you can't take all the time in the world because, if you get some grant funding, it has deadlines and it has, time limits, right? So as much as you can beforehand, before you even get the grant to plan, I think that's important to do. And then understanding the needs of your community and or the people that you serve. So obviously, if you are a county government, so you got the entire residents of the county to think about, and you want to do some programming. So understanding what the needs are in your county. But if you have an organization and you are serving veterans, doing a community needs assessment to find out what is it that they need, what is the practicality of having the digital skills, so that when you are having your navigator teach classes, for one thing, that they're teaching classes that are relevant to the folks that you are serving. Always, this is new. This is a new and niche idea. This whole thing of digital equity. There's still millions and millions of people, as well as even organizations, that still don't even understand what this is and what's going on. And I say that because when you go and you do something or launch a program, it's not going to come out like gangbusters. And don't allow that to deter you. So I will say, like, even our current cohort of fellows. So as I say again, we had to make that pivot, right? So they had to make that pivot. Now they're doing digital skills classes. And now all of a sudden at the end, all of their classes and hard work is starting to ramp up and it's almost time for them to go. So that's how it is sometimes. And so just being perseverance, ask for help. That is what the Illinois Broadband Lab is here for. And obviously you see my contact information here, and I'm available to help you all as you all move forward with your digital inclusion or your digital navigator program.
Thank you so much, Anita. We appreciate you sharing more specific detailed information with this audience. It is helpful, and please definitely contact Anita for further questions. Thank you. And we just want to do a summary, just a wrap up of what Anita has shared and the things that we all have learned in the digital navigation program process for us as an office, as IBL. And so we have the program goal. As Anita mentioned, you have to have the goals. What are your goals? What are those things that you have been envisioning that you wanted for your community? What is your specific community need? And then overall, what is the description? What are those demographic characteristics? What is your degree of reach? How many people can you reach? What is your capacity? Make sure you're mindful of that and understand that we're all here. So there are other organizations that will be able to serve other communities that you may not be able to serve. And then therefore being mindful of what your challenges are, would be, and perhaps learning how to move forward in meeting those challenges, but being honest with yourself about that. And then of course your budget, the eligibility. And then you want to build this digital equity ecosystem. And you want to do so with other partners, supportive services, and of course other businesses, organizations, and government affiliates as well. So thank you again, Aneta, and please contact Aneta with further information. One of the other things we want to talk about, of course, or we want to just highlight, is the implementation plan. And so we want to be mindful. And we're going to have these slides available for you after the meeting so that you'll be able to review this information, get in contact with Aneta, get in contact with any of us, Devin, myself, and other members of IOB as well as IBL. Thank you so much. So we have another expert. We're going to shift a little bit away from digital navigation, but not completely, because Dwayne Douglas is no stranger to working with digital navigators, helping digital navigators as part of the programming that he's doing with his organization Quilt, and working and building out various different community coalitions throughout the Chicagoland communities. So I would like to introduce you to Dwayne Douglas, and for him to actually share a little bit more about who he is, and then we'll get into the question and answer process of our interview. Dwayne.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Alicia. Thanks for this opportunity as well. Hello, everyone. I'm Dwayne Douglas. I'm the CEO of both Quilt and Node Networks. My journey began back in 2017 when I was in a conversation with a family member in Chicago who didn't understand the importance of the internet and asked me, what do they need the internet for? So I went back home to my suburban house out in Naperville with a heavy heart and concern, and performed some research only to discover that the digital divide was a lot bigger issue than I was aware. I live in a bubble out here, as most people in the suburbs do. So I paused my career in IT and telecom and started Quilt and Node. I'm now a member of the City of Chicago Digital Equity Guiding Team and Cook County Digital Equity Action Committee. So who is Quilt and Node? Quilt is a nonprofit I started dedicated to empowering marginalized communities in Chicago, Cook County, and the collar counties by addressing digital equity. Quilt's mission is to close the digital divide by providing affordable broadband access, enhancing digital literacy, and fostering socioeconomic mobility through technology and partnership with communities. We have a strong belief that we have to partner with communities. Our major initiatives include the Chicago Area Broadband Initiative, CABI, and the Inspire Workforce Development Program. Again, Quilt partners and community organizations to deliver comprehensive support services, skill building, educational programs aiming to create sustainable technology-driven solutions that transforms lives and uplift neighborhoods. Node Networks is our local ISP, internet service provider. We partner with Quilt to provide affordable broadband access to marginalized communities across our fiber optic network. Node is an eligible telecommunications carrier that provides communications infrastructure services, including fiber and bandwidth connectivity infrastructure in Illinois. By collaborating with Quilt, Node plays a crucial role in the Chicago Area Broadband Initiative, ensuring that residents in marginalized areas have reliable and low-cost internet services. Node is committed to building and bridging the digital divide by facilitating connectivity and supporting initiatives that promote digital equity.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that, Dwayne. We know that it's important for us to understand all aspects of digital inclusion, digital equity. As Aneta mentioned, it is a niche for the most part, but as you reference, it is something that is so much larger and has been going on for some time. And it's great to have you here to talk about your program. So what does your budget look like on a high level when you are working throughout these communities, as well as when you're planning your goals for reaching the next community? What are those main buckets that you spend funding on and that you plan on spending, using your funding for?
Yeah, so some of the main buckets are, their staff, equipment, marketing, and some other things as well. But for staffing, we have to invest in some skilled personnel, including program coordinators, digital literacy instructors, technical support staff, and administration roles, all critical to delivering our services effectively in the community. Also, on the equipment side, because we do device distributions, but we also build infrastructure inside of communities also as it relates to community broadband solutions. So we spend a lot of funding on those solutions as well. Marketing, of course, and that's for, outreach and engagement. They're very crucial. So we invest in marketing efforts to raise awareness and attract participants to our programs, but also in reaching our community partners. So, these programs include, materials, facility maintenance and community events, because the maintenance on our facilities, meaning that when we put solutions up in neighborhoods, we have to have resources that can go out there and maintain those solutions as well. And other operational costs essential to, program delivery and community partnerships.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. And how is it specifically that you are marketing and promoting your program? Of course, you're here. People are learning more about who you are, who your organizations are. But what are some of the other things when you think it when you speak of on community outreach, digital marketing, and traditional media and word of mouth? What are out of those? How effective have they been, and what specifically do you do, if you can just share on a higher level, so that others can learn from you with the complexity, as it may seem, with the organizations that you have?
Yeah. So the biggest thing for us is our community partnerships, because we are an external organization. Again, I live out in Naperville, so when I come into the city, I understand that, although I was born on the west side of Chicago and I'm from Chicago, I'm not of those communities. And it's important to understand that when you work in these communities. So it's engaging directly with those community organizations, through local events, partnerships, and face-to-face interactions. That's very important when you're working with these communities, because these organizations are doing great work in those communities, and you don't want to impede that work. You want to get in where you can fit in to be able to work with them. Leveraging social media for digital marketing, utilizing flyers, brochures, and posters, and a lot of those things are in alignment with the work that our current partners are doing in the community as well, but also word of mouth, encouraging the participants and community leaders to share their positive experiences and spread the word about your program.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And what metrics is it that you collect when you're collecting comprehensive set of metrics? We understand to evaluate our impact, it includes participation numbers, completion rates, and for us, broadband adoption rates, right? And then, of course, for all of us, employment outcomes. So what is it that you do when you're collecting metrics? If you can give us, information on a high level of what that looks like, so that others can learn.
We track the numbers of individuals who are actually attending and completing programs. We measure success rates of our training programs and certification programs. We monitor how many households are adopting broadband services, meaning connectivity in the home, not necessarily on their phones. We track job placements and career advancement among some of the program graduates. We gather qualitative data through surveys and focus groups to understand participation and obviously satisfaction and areas that we can improve upon as well. A big thing for us is engagement with the community and ensuring that they have input in the work that we're doing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I know that, having focus groups that can be inclusive, extensive, more specific, but definitely that it is helpful. So if you can tell us, how do you measure these impacts and evaluate the progress as it relates to your focus groups, surveys, and long-term tracking, and of course, stakeholder feedback?
Right. So because we work across the city and the county, a lot of the organizations we work with, they look for different metrics. And so what we try to do is to be kind of consistent in the work that we're doing. But again, we get in where we fit in with our community organizations. We don't impede in any form or fashion, but we regularly review the metrics we collect to assess performance and also to identify trends. So we conduct, participant surveys. We also conduct surveys with our partners as well on the work and on how we're working with them in the community, because we want to improve upon how we're engaging with them. We also look at monitoring long-term outcomes such as sustained employment, career progression, and improve quality of life. That's a big one for us because the whole goal is for us are outcomes. We're not just trying to get individuals on the internet to be on the internet. We're getting individuals on the internet so they can improve their lives.
Right.
We want them to be engaging versus consuming.
Right. Right. Thank you so much. And what have been your biggest challenges and how have you overcome them? As we're listening to you, we understand, we can imagine that the work that you and your team are doing is very complex and obviously is extensive. But what are some of the challenges that you have faced when you started going into the communities? The challenges and how you've overcome those challenges in the beginning until now?
Yeah, I use it for me. It's more about changing your mind, right? For me, when I'm going into these challenges, because again, I mentioned I live out here in Naperville in this bubble, right? So we have a lot of things that and we assume that everyone has these same benefits. So a
Mhm.
lot of humbling takes place when I leave my bubble and going down to these areas in the city of Chicago or in Cook County and understanding how individuals are working. So I have to change my mind and my approach of how I'm going to work with them, but hopefully being able to change their mind as well. And that's one of the biggest barriers is just that, getting individuals and gaining that trust from individuals and overcoming those barriers as relate to digital access and also affordability and the digital literacy pieces as well. It still humbles me to understand that individuals in certain instances don't know how to turn on devices, or don't have devices in their homes. But also community engagement is one as well. So, that sustainable engagement and participation from the organizations, because they have a lot on their plate, a lot of work that they're doing. So we have to take on a lot of the actual on the ground work, to help assist them as well, because a lot of those organizations, in some cases, they have their own digital literacy, journey that they're on as well.
Right.
So, and also limited funding. So the limited funding and it really is a barrier because it really limits us as far as scaling. But you also asked how we're addressing some of those as well. I apologize, but that's one of the reasons why I started Quilt and Node networks as well, because I knew that we need to be able to not only address the digital divide, but also be able to provide solutions for it, and that's what the ISP does. And in working also with those community organizations and other stakeholders to leverage those resources and also their expertise, because these individuals and these partners that we build, and they have a lot of experience they can bring to the, to bear, because we form this sector relationship where you bring your resources and your experience, and we all come together and we work on
Yeah.
solutions for those individuals' communities.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And so for your takeaways, what advice would you have for someone looking to stand up a digital inclusion program? Something like yours, similar to yours, but overall, again, a digital inclusion program as we're all working on this together.
Yeah. So I'd say understand the specific digital challenges and opportunities within the community. Every community is not the same, and everyone's on their digital journey, but they may be at different levels and places. And it's important to understand that when you're communicating and bringing solutions to the communities. Be open-minded about your perspective on what you would like to see, or from where you come from, and trying to implement within those communities. You have to look at it through their lens as well.
Hmm.
Your program's accessible, providing affordable devices, internet access, and accommodating different skill levels, because
Yes.
everyone in the community is on a journey. You design programs with long-term sustainability in mind, ensuring that they can adapt and evolve over time. And then I'd say foster a sense of ownership and engagement with the community, because it
Yes.
needs to be, their program. They need to understand and feel as if it's their program by involving them in the program design and delivery process.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much, Dwayne. We know that you and your team are doing some great work, hard work, complex work, as I've said several times. But we appreciate your partnership, and we hope that others here in this meeting will be able to also connect with you and learn more about what you're doing, and then continue with building partnerships. So I appreciate both you, Aneta, and Dwayne, for sharing more specific information about who you are and the programs that you're doing with digital inclusion. At this time, I'm going to pass this over to Devin. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Alicia, for guiding us through the conversation, and Aneta and Dwayne, our guest speakers. So if you've attended all 3 webinars, you hopefully now heard about the first step, how to actually make sure you're qualified to apply for a grant. The next step, how to write a great grant application. And then the third step, how to actually craft a program that is sustainable, that works, that's effective, and that really reaches your goals in the communities you're trying to serve. So more to come, but hopefully this was kind of a taste of how to start thinking about this. Super quick next steps, and then we will open it up for questions. Our digital equity plan is live. We'll send you the link if you don't have it already. Encourage everyone to read it. We'll also send you our partner intake form, newsletter link, to make sure that you get all of our communications. And then we'd love to host more of these, potentially more in person, diving into those different program types over the summer. So stay tuned for that. And if you're interested in getting training or guidance on a certain topic, let us know, because we're building this plane as we're flying it. So we are open to feedback along every step of this journey. So with that, let's open it up for questions, either for any of our speakers or about the kind of grant process more generally. I'm going to scroll up in the chat and MC this, but may pass it to my colleagues for their expertise. I'm seeing a lot of awesome resources here. That's great. Let's see. Okay, so we had a question earlier on from Terrence about how can interested individuals apply to be a digital navigator? Can they receive training? Is this a part of the Lead for America program, or are there other opportunities? So this is kind of just the beginning. And the reason why we've brought folks together for these webinars is to start thinking about how you might want to take advantage of the Digital Equity Act funds that are coming our way in late summer, early fall, and really allowing us to implement our plan over the next 5 years. So the Illinois Broadband Lab, Aneta's Digital Navigator program, will be continuing with 10 digital navigators around the state. So she'll be sharing more about that in the coming weeks and ways to participate in that. But the cool thing is we're not stopping there. So you can apply for funds through this statewide digital equity grant program to host your own digital navigator, to stand up a digital navigator program. There's also lots of other digital navigator programs already in motion. I know Lake County is starting a digital navigator program, Chicago State University, St. Augustine. And so what to expect going forward is not just the opportunities to stand up a program or be a digital navigator, but participating in a statewide community of digital navigators to get a centralized and consistent training to join this space, a community of practice, to share and learn from your peers who might be experiencing the same thing. And kind of just get this consistent support as we come together and like bring everything together in that central community of practice. So yes to all of your questions, but if you did have any feedback, ideas, or specific ideas, we would love to hear it. Scrolling right down. Yes, we will share the slides and the recording, and that will also be on our website. All right, so for the Illinois Digital Equity Project budgets, what might be the range of grant amounts, percent overhead, evaluation metrics, and partner fees, plus contributed services? So we are designing this grant program kind of as we go, and it will launch roughly in September. So I don't want to speak to a specific dollar amount right now before we have our full budget identified and get approval from NTIA. I will point you to our previous Digital Equity Capacity Kickstarter program, where we funded projects between $30,000 and $300,000. I have been giving the caveat of this is historic funding, but it's still not going to be enough. So while we would love to fund everyone's dream projects, I would kind of have in your head what is like your core must-have project, and then what are those nice-to-haves, because there will be trade-offs that we'll have to make sure we can fund as many strong projects as we can. Contributed services, so there won't be a match required for this, but we'll certainly look for ways that show you're thinking about how to kind of embed digital equity programming into broader, more sustainable services, whether that's in a hospital or telehealth care setting, to a library, to a housing authority. So lots of ways to kind of demonstrate that long-term commitment and skin in the game that would contribute to a strong application. Have there been models of hosting community forum calendars, such as with school and community colleges, experience with partner evaluation teams, including with universities, and impact tracking on skills and longer-term family security increases over 3 years, perhaps a model forum in each of the 10 DCEO areas? There's a lot here. I want to make sure, Leighton, I'm grabbing everything from this. So community forum calendars, I'm interpreting that as like some place to see events and opportunities in your region. I think that's an awesome idea. We'd love to explore further. Looking at like data and impact on that higher regional level. So one project that we committed to in the digital equity plan is launching a digital equity source of truth, which is going to be a public facing dashboard meant for all of you. So if you want to know, where does my community stand right now as it relates to digital disparities? What progress are we making on the city level, county level, state level? That's something that we'll be standing up over the next year and training all of you to report your data into it so we can kind of collectively track, do some sort of asset mapping so we can capture all of the great things happening, and then allow you to use that for telling your story, pitching funders, and telling your sort of impact story. All right, I think that's all of the questions I'm seeing in the chat. Any final questions about, what it takes to build a digital navigator program, a community-based digital inclusion program? Anything at all? Feel free to unmute as well. Great. Well, Alicia just put all of our helpful links in the chat, and we'll get all of this out over email. But really appreciate everyone's time today. The recording and slides will be sent out and will be posted on our digital equity website. If you have certain topics that you're interested in getting a deep dive or a training on, we'd love to hear your feedback so we can make those connections and stand that up. But with that, I think we can close out. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks to Devin and Alicia and Aneta. Always great content. Thank you so much for providing it. We'll have the recordings available, Devin, for review as soon as we can. And have a good afternoon. Stay cool, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Bye.